This has been a Clear Springs Entertainment production. On this episode of Parx-e Trip Across America. For Chris Parke, America is a way of life for him. He loves to go back every chance he can get, to meet new people and to catch up with old friends. So for 5 weeks, he explored America again. And along the way, he interviewed some cool people and explored some cool new cities. From New Zealand to America, watch as he explores America and interviews some cool people. This is Parx-e Trip Across America.
So how did you get into filmmaking and acting?
My dad was in the car business, and while that would have been very lucrative at the time, I just wanted to do something else. And growing up, I was always a fan of movies and TV. Obviously, Star Wars was a big part of my childhood,
And I did it again.
which stuck. And what I think actually got me interested in filmmaking was looking back at that as an adult. Because as a kid, I wasn't really interested, but I did love movies and I loved seeing how they got made. When I look back at Star Wars, I remember looking at all the magazines on how they made it. You had these grown men playing with toys. All the spaceships were actual toys that they made, props that they made to film instead of it all being computer today. I think that's what started the interest. I was always a big fan of the H.G. Wells eco-terror movies in the 70s, like Empire of the Ants and Food of the Gods. That stuff stuck with me. So, and in junior high, we were studying Edgar Allan Poe.
Nice.
And I became really interested in storytelling and even writing in junior high. In high school, I lost interest in all of this, but I got it back in college. So that's kind of where it comes from.
So I take it you've seen the Roger Corman Edgar Allan Poe movies then?
I've seen several of them, yes.
And I think he's done a good job of how he's turned those stories into really good movies.
Yeah, and Roger Corman is kind of an inspiration, especially for Conjoined. You mentioned Conjoined. His process of shooting it for as little money as possible, as quickly as possible, using sets you already have, all that came into was a big factor when we were making Conjoined. We always referred to Roger Corman and his style.
So how did Conjoined come about?
It's very fun how Conjoined came about, and it was kind of a fluke. I was having a conversation with my friend Bob Willems, who was ultimately the executive producer of Conjoined. He owned a studio called Champion Entertainment with a stage in the back, and he was going to launch a horror film subscription service. You pay $5.99 a month and you can watch all the movies he has for free on this service. Well, the service never came to be. He launched a Roku channel instead. But the concept of his channel was any horror film is worth watching, good, bad, whatever. And when he said he would take bad films, I said, well, I'll make you a bad film. Give me $2,000, and if you don't care what the quality is, I will make you the best film I can for that money, but the pressure of making a good, really good film is off my back, knowing that it's going to have an outlet when it's done. That's the seed. I reached out to Chuck Norfolk, my good friend and writer and a fellow director, and gave him the opportunity, shared the opportunity with him. We have the opportunity to make this film. We have $2,000, no more. I need a script that is horror in the loosest sense of the word. It can be anything, it can be comedy, it can be dramatic, but it has to fall under the horror umbrella in the loosest sense. And he said, okay, give me some time. And 4 days later, I think it was 4 days later, he called me and said, I've got it. Here's a script that we have, my brother and I have. Take a look at it. So I read it. It was called Something Strange. It was a 59-page script, which ultimately was Conjoined. We just renamed it. And I said, Chuck, I love it. We're going to do it. We're going to shoot it as is. And it's going to be as long as it is. 59 pages should have been about an hour. told Bob, okay, we got our script. We're going to shoot this film. And that's where it started.
So how did the casting of that movie come about? How did each person get cast for that movie?
We did not have auditions. One of the rules I set for myself was we're not going to tell anyone we're making this movie until it's done, because we fall into the trap of casting too early, getting on Facebook and Twitter and talking about films that don't get finished for years. So we kept it quiet. So we had our cast list and we talked about ideal cast members for the movie, and we reached out to those people individually. We knew Michelle, Chuck knew Kiefer. Our first choice for Stanley, which ultimately was played by Tom Long, didn't want to do it. So Sarah Gaston, who we wrote a part for, said, call Tom Long. And I said, brilliant, Tom Long. We called Tom, he was interested, and everything just fell into place. We did not hold auditions. We just offered the role to people. Offered it to Michelle, offered it to Kiefer, offered it to Sarah. Called Dan Braverman. You want to do this small part, reprise your role as Detective Sutherland. Called Tom, called Jake Bird, called Deidre. And they all said yes, and it was great.
So yeah, are you happy how people have responded to the film?
Oh, I could not be happier. We expected people to hate it. We expected people to call it a bad movie. And when we started getting those first reviews, they were glowing. And I was just like, this wasn't supposed to happen. We were supposed to be getting bad reviews that we were going to put on the cover. But everybody that saw it, I shouldn't say everybody, I would say 90% of the people that saw it loved it, got the joke, and shared it with friends and wrote good reviews. There were a couple of people who just didn't appreciate the joke of it being a bad movie intentionally, but most people got the joke and really loved it.
So you've made a bunch of movies, and including Lars. So let's talk about Lars.
Okay, Lars the Emo Kid. We actually made that before Conjoined, and Lars is based on Paxton Gilmore's series of YouTube shorts called Lars the Emo Kid. I had met Paxton on a short film, and when we were done, he had mentioned casually, oh, I made these short films called Lars the Emo Kid. They're on YouTube. You should watch them. And I went home that night and I watched them. And I rewatched them. And I watched them again and again. And I loved them. And I got some friends to watch them. I said, what do you think about these shorts? And they liked them. And I called Paxton. I reached out to him. I think I called him or hit him up on YouTube and said, I really like your films. If you can write a full-length film based on this character and we like it, I'll stop whatever I'm doing at the time and make your movie. And he took the challenge, and 9 months later he called me and said, I've got a script. And I read the script, and it was really, really good. Paxton, he was 19 years old at the time. He wrote this really meaningful, funny script. And again, I got some second and third opinions, and everyone loved it. Lars the Emo Kid is a teen comedy that it's very current and relevant. Emo might be kind of dated. Emo was kind of an 80s, 90s thing to me. I think it's still out there, but not as big as it was. But it's really about teenagers dealing with peer pressure, teen suicide, bullying, parents getting divorced. Really current stuff put in a shell of a comedy. And I'm really proud of it.
So you're still in the process of getting it released, aren't you?
A little. We released it on Amazon Prime. That's where you can find it now. And I'm working on the DVD and the Blu-ray and trying to get a little wider distribution. But I had to get it on Amazon Prime so people can finally see it.
So, because let's talk about that whole thing with distributions, because these days you can rent your movie on YouTube. You've got things like Vimeo, you've got things like Amazon, you've got things like, and you've got all these video Voodoo, that's it, thank you. And you've all these different channels of getting your movies out there, where in the old days you'd be and of course you've got your Google Play and your iTunes. And
right. I made my first film, Laughing Boy, in 1998, and it was a completely different world then. To really make money, you had to get proper distribution, but you also had to have a distributor that you trusted, which on a small scale, I had a sub-distributor that actually wrote us checks. The distributor that got us seen around the world never wrote me any checks, unfortunately. And that was when Netflix was mailing DVDs, which we got Laughing Boy on Netflix and made a couple $100. People could actually rent the movie through the mail. Streaming was not an option then. Eventually, Laughing Boy did become available on Netflix streaming, but not for long. But now, fast forward to now, we've got all these outlets at our fingertips. Amazon Prime recently made it available to where everyone could put their films online with just a few requirements. We don't have to pay a fee to do that, but we do get the rental and the pay for streaming. That's huge because Amazon has millions of customers around the world. Obviously, you still got to market it yourself, but they've given us an outlet that we don't have to pay for, that we can handle ourselves, and they actually send us money.
That's good.
They actually send me money, which is great, even though it's not much, but I'm grateful for anything that pays. YouTube, I recently learned, doesn't rent anymore.
It doesn't?
No, that was as of December. I think they canceled that program, which I was getting really excited about. But you can still make money off ad revenue, but it's not much.
No.
I'm exploring other options right now with Vudu and Roku. Roku is something that I've been experimenting with. I have my films on maybe 6 Roku channels. I don't know if that's available all over the world.
No, it's not in Australia.
It's
the Roku box has come to Australia, but it's known as the T box because Telstra use it which is the big phone company in Australia. They use it for their entertainment services.
Right. I am a collector of things, so having physical product is important to me. So I'm seeing Lars through to DVD and Blu-ray myself, and you had mentioned on the way here that I was working on the Blu-ray, so I'm hoping to have that out in the spring. But I'll sell it myself at conventions and online. I'll try to get it on Amazon.
Will you create space?
No, I'll make 1,000. I'll have them replicated professionally. Create Space, I think, burns them. I don't want burns. I want to sell the same disc that you're going to get at the retail store.
Well, let's talk about that now. So you've worked with Bob Willam, who was involved in a movie which I had seen many years ago, which I actually have still on DVD. I've actually got 2 copies because it's got an interesting life because the Australian release is known as Altered Love, but also in Australia, they released it under a different title as Twisted Fair. I don't know how that happened. I don't know the copyright status of the film, who owns it, if there's any distribution, if it's fallen to public domain, but it's an interesting film.
Released in other countries, sometimes the names change. I do know that, and as most people do.
Yeah, I know of that because it's one of my favorite movies, a movie called Inside Moves. It was directed by Richard Donner, and when it didn't do so well in America, it got released at the guise as Max's Bar, and it's just funny how films get different titles, and it's also interesting when films get saved. When when a film gets saved, when basically film's bombed, and the producer or the DVD maker managed to find the last remaining print that's almost about to go to the scrap heap.
Yeah, and I wonder how that's going to play out over the years with independent film being mostly on hard drives.
Oh, yeah.
I know quite a few filmmakers who've lost footage, lost films forever because a hard drive crashed.
That's why you should make plenty of backups.
Yeah, I know when we made Lars, I have the footage backed up 7 times.
That's good.
Every time there was a sale on a hard drive, I'd go buy a new hard drive and make a backup.
I understand that completely. So when I'll mention this, when I get to Chicago, I'm going to back up all the footage I've done. I've been trying to do it via my tablet, but my OTG cable is not doing it. It keeps cutting out. So when I get access to a proper computer, I'll just back up everything onto because I've got an SD card and a USB stick to put mine too. But you're right though, because like in the old days it'd all be on film and reels, but now it's all going to be on SD card, probably hard disks. And hard disks are great, but they do have, if you use them quite a bit, they do have a short shelf life.
Right, and a hard drive can crash by just sitting there. So you have to have multiple backups. My first film, Laughing Boy, was shot on 16 millimeter film, and I still have that film negative in my closet, and it takes up 3 boxes. It takes up quite a bit of space, and I don't know what to do with it, but I can't bring myself to throw it out.
What, you haven't thought about getting it properly converted into like? You've probably done it, converted into movies, or
yeah, it's all stored on tape and digitally. I've got it. I had to digitize it to put on Amazon, and I still have the Beta SP digital master.
Beta?
Yeah, wow. Beta SP. I have my film career spans 24 years, so I could say the 90s, the 2000s, 3 decades. So I've seen quite a bit. I saw the last independent films shot on film, and I've seen quite a bit in the transition that several filmmakers that are starting now haven't seen. I did an interview the other day with another filmmaker who does a podcast, and he was just fascinated that my first film was shot on film. And I'm starting to see, and there's tremendous value to me in having shot my first film on film. That filmmakers today, and I don't want to sound like, doing it the old way, get off my lawn, old man, get off my lawn, kids. But there's a value to me to having shot on film that filmmakers now won't ever experience, because it's just so easy to fix a mistake now. It's so easy to just show up without a plan and just start shooting. Whereas when we were doing film, you really had to meticulously plan your day, or you were going to waste a whole lot of money.
It's true that because like I remember when it was Paul Bartel was making Eating Rail.
Yes.
He was getting basically the dregs from all his mates.
Yes.
All his mates who were the big movies, they'd give him all his spares.
Yeah.
And he'd be shooting them on weekend. He'd be shooting on weekends whenever free time he could get it, and wherever he had some money, he'd be shooting. And he'd have the drag, the cast, and they come do stuff.
Yeah, and you bought what's called short ends when another film. We had 11-minute reels of film, so we could film for 11 minutes. That doesn't mean 11 minutes of usable footage. But say you shoot 10 minutes and you have that 1 minute left. That's a short end, and we could buy short ends of films. That's cans that were exposed and filmed and exposed, but they found that leftover to be too short to do another take. You could buy. There was a market for that, and we bought short ends, and you could shoot 2 minutes of film with that short end. And it's really fascinating to look back at, because you don't have to do that now. Like these cards, you showed me a 64 gigabyte card that was the size of a postage stamp.
They get smaller than that. But the thing is though, how important do you think the scene here in Houston is for filmmaking? Because there are a lot of movies being made out of Houston that I've come across because of you and Michelle. I'm just thinking, wow, it's funny, like, you think all movies would be just made in Hollywood, but now you see all these smaller cities, they have their own little scene and whatnot.
Yes, well, obviously technology has made it very accessible to everybody who not only knows the craft, but just once had a dream of making a movie. I have friends that I thought had no interest in film suddenly announcing that they're making an independent film. And I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful that everyone gets to express their creativity so affordably now. I do think it's important, though, that you really respect the craft and learn how to do it. But I think it's great that there's so many films being made. I think it's great that as actors we have an opportunity to work on a film every week if we want to pursue it. I think it's great that we have options now, that we don't have to work on every film that comes our way. When I was getting started as an actor in Houston in like 1993, we were lucky if there were 4 independent films made a year. So if you miss out, you don't get cast on one, or you don't hear about the audition, it was kind of really a letdown, because you really had to wait. You didn't know when the next one was coming. But now you get on Facebook and Twitter and all these social sites, everyone's announcing almost every day that they're going to make a film. And if you miss out on one, there's going to be another one in a week. Some of these people are actually raising enough money to pay people, which is fantastic too. So it's really an exciting time to be doing this, and not only to be making them, but to be able to get our films exposed, available to a worldwide audience on the internet.
So what have you seen recently that has inspired you?
As far as films go, we got in America, we got this thing called Movie Pass now, that we pay a monthly fee and we can go to the movies once a day for free.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's actually gotten me going back to the movie theater. It got so expensive I just couldn't go and just started watching movies on TV. But now I'm going at least twice a month now to see movies on the big screen again. And even though budget-wise, films like that, like Star Wars and The Greatest Showman and all that, budget-wise, they're out of my reach. But it's still inspiring to go to the movie theaters again, knowing that I'm doing that. I am making films and telling stories, even though my audience is much smaller, but I'm still doing it, and there's still hope. There's still that dream of getting that big film. I did, I'm not a big musical guy, but I went to see The Greatest Showman recently, and it was phenomenal. Even though I'm not big on the song and dance, I still love the storytelling.
Cool. So my last question is, have you ever bought an as seen on TV product before?
Yes, I have. What was it though? Well, over the years, I've bought music. I bought K-Tel albums, if that tells you how old I am.
Mm-hmm.
I bought K-Tel albums as seen on TV. My parents I'd say, I want that, Mom, I want that, Dad, and they'd buy me the record that you order on TV. I bought some stuff to clean my toilet.
Nice.
I've bought, I have bought as seen on TV stuff.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
But mainly the ones that come to mind are those K-Tel compilation albums of kids' novelty songs. I still have those.
Nice.
They're 30, 40 years old now, but I still have them.
Nice.
This has been a Clear Springs Entertainment production. Thanks for watching.